All right, so we're gonna make our player now, and it's gonna be really simple. We're not gonna add anything crazy yet. We're not gonna make a move. We're not even gonna put them in the screen yet. But what we are gonna do is we're gonna go to Game Objects Player. Remember, game objects are the objects in the game that are sort of permanently loaded. The graphics for these are permanently loaded, and the monster objects are the ones that kind of change from screen to screen. It loads in different graphics for screen to screen form. These are just template names. They don't have to be these things. Like this could be player 2, and this you could have all the rest could be screen effects or whatever. These are just samples of some of the things that I just thought to get the idea in your head of things that might be game objects for the player. We could also change the name of any of them. I'll change this guy to Hero instead. So now he's called Hero. I don't know if that updates with this save. If I were to save it, I don't know if it's going to stay. All that stuff is stuff that we're tracking right now. We're working on making sure that happens. All right, so I can set his animation up to 8 frames. Right now, this is just going to be an idle stance, so he's just going to be standing still, and so I just need to be worried about 1 frame. We spent a lot of time. It was limited, and we thought it was going to be a hard limit to have all sprites only be able to do 4 frames. We actually got it to where you can have any number of frames between 1 and 8, technically even more, but it gets a little funky because of the size of files that for each player that ends up creating. So we just capped it at 8, which is plenty to get a detailed motion like out of a walk cycle for an 8-bit NES game. What we do want to do, though, is our player is going to be too wide and too high. You can make him as wide and high as you want, but unless you've got a really good reason for it, I would keep him pretty small. We've prevented it from going anywhere beyond 8 pixels or 8 tiles wide. Once you get beyond 8 tiles wide, you already have flicker. So I wouldn't make these huge characters because those are some of the things you have to worry about. In order to apply a tile to these, it's the same as when I was building tiles. I select the one that I want to change, and then I go to my tile set and click the change. And what's fun is I can actually flip horizontally with sprite graphics, and I can flip vertically. Now, you can't do that with background tiles, but you can do that with sprite tiles for the NES. So that's a NES limit, not a NESmaker limit. Background tiles cannot be flipped. There's not enough memory for that amount of information to keep track of all tiles and their flips, but there is for sprites. So now I've gone and I've made an idle stance for my Hero, and I now have a hero object that I can place in the game. By default, the way that the engine is currently set up right now, this object is going to be created on the first screen, and he's going to be placed where I place him. Right now, he doesn't do anything. He's just going to be standing there. He doesn't move. He doesn't affect the background, whatever. If I go to Overworld, I don't want him on this screen. In fact, I want him on this screen, and let's say I want to place him right here. I can right-click and hit Place Player. And what that did was it just updated what screen he's on and what position he's going to start on that screen. All right. Now, the problem is I have no way to transition from my start screen to this screen in order to test this. So we need to start looking at input. Our first input that we're going to actually make the game do, very simple. We want it when I'm on the start screen and I press the start button, it goes to the main game and goes to this screen. You don't have to worry about coding this because we've already got a code that does it. It's a very common function, so it's already built into NESmaker. What we need to do, though, we do need to add the code and use the input editor to tell it when to do what. So if I go to code scripts, all of the scripts that you're going to be using and we're going to have you affect in this tutorial series are in user scripts. So if I double click on user scripts, you'll see I have one called start button start screen. I can double click on that, and now it's in the tool to use. If I click on it once in the tool, this is the actual script. This is what it does. It does this thing. Cool. I mean, first of all, it doesn't even look that complicated. If I knew, a couple of these, what some of this stuff meant, it's only a couple lines of code. But regardless, the idea is later on, if you want to do more complicated things on your start screen, this is where you can, when you press the start button, this is what happens. So you could actually add more code to this. What we want is we want to use the input editor and tell it in the start screen, when I press the start button, it activates this code. So on the input editor, when I'm on the start screen. So first I select the game state. When I'm on the start screen and I press, I can cycle through hold or release, or press, hold or release. When I press the start screen, I don't need to select the target for any scripts right now. Most of these scripts, the scripts that we're going to use for this, are already calling the right target inside the script themselves, and we don't have to worry about end state or script parameter either. All we need to do is we need to know the input, the game state, and what script to run. And so when I'm on the start screen, I press start. I'm going to run this start button start screen script, and I'm going to add the script. So now it reads like a sentence. On the start screen, when I press start, don't worry about the object. I'm going to run this script. So let's test this now. I've just set up my first input. It should start on the start screen, which was this. And we know that the attributes are a little bit messed up. When I press the start screen, it's going to go to this, and my player is going to appear right there. Test. Here's our first test. Export and test. Press any key. Here I am. There's my start screen, the start screen I made, and press start. And there he is on the screen. Now I'm aware that there's an issue with the leftmost and probably the topmost tiles. It's just something I need to get back in the code and tweak. I actually turned them off while I was testing something, so I just need to put them back on. Disregard any weird tiles on the left or the top if they're still there when you get this. Before we get off this and jump to the next video, let's take a look at the picture processing unit and what's loaded. So remember, our entire first tile set loads to these rows of graphics right here. Our screen specific loads to the next row, and then we have 4 rows of paths. And then we have the HUD that loads, that's permanently loaded as of right now. Now we're going to make it so that you can determine the size of the HUD and what you can do with the graphics if you're not using the HUD. At the very least, you can have no HUD, 2 rows of HUD, or all 4 rows of HUD. It doesn't exist right now. That's a coming soon type thing. But right now, it'll automatically load the entire HUD, and so the graphics are all loaded for you. It also loaded our player and a monster, a default monster that we haven't set him up yet, but his graphics have loaded. So pretty cool. We're going to get into making this guy move with some other input scripts next.